Hey Turning Point Zone fam, welcome to TPZ Table Talk. We have a very special guest with us, Arleen Spenceley.
Arleen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking of your book, Chastity. I'm sorry. Arleen Spenceley, author of Chastity is for Lovers. This book right here, she's awesome. She wrote a sex essay, Tampa Bay Times, when you were about 23?
Yeah, when I was 23.
Yes. So, and this essay went viral online and in the newspaper industry. People kept calling like, what is this? So let us know. How did that get started?
Yeah, so I was a staff writer for the Tampa Bay Times for, about a decade, but very early in that part of my career, I was dating a guy who did not define sex the same way I do, because as a Christian, I believe that sex is a sacred physical sign of the vows that a husband and wife make on the altar where they were married, which means as a single person, sex is not for me. And this guy didn't really agree, but he was sort of willing to comply, but it became pretty clear to me after a while that he and I were not right for each other, so I ended the relationship. But I realized that if this one random guy I happened to date didn't understand why I would choose to save sex, then there are probably tons of other people who don't understand either. And Tampa Bay Times is the largest newspaper in the state of Florida, and so as a staff writer there, I thought, what a great opportunity. Let me put the virtue of chastity in the newspaper. And I did, and I didn't really realize how intense the feedback would be that I got.
So what were some of the craziest things people would say?
Oh man, I heard from so many people. I would say the feedback was about 50% positive, 50% negative. No one who disagreed with me was able to give me a sound argument in favor of non-marital sex. The people who didn't agree mostly insulted me, told me you're a virgin because you're not attractive, or you're a virgin because I can't tell if you're a man or a woman. These are real comments that I got, yeah. So it was, it thickened my skin, and I learned, though, ultimately that while I thought people needed to read about chastity, people really needed to talk about it, because I heard from so many people who either were saving sex and thought they were alone, and they finally learned that they're not, or they were saving sex from now on, and they weren't sure if it was possible, and now they knew that it really is. Or from like parents of teens and tweens who thought their kids were growing up in a world where nobody makes this decision anymore, and they learned that they were wrong, and they were glad that they were wrong.
Look, there's somebody. Okay, yeah. Before we continue, I'm going to give you a chance to share.
Sure.
And for our viewers, at the end of this, we're going to give you a... if you comment and you share this live video, you will get a chance to win this awesome book. So this talk, we only have a few, it's not too long, but if you want to know more, comment and share for the chance to win this book. And at the end of this, last week Erica did her live and promised I will be announcing who is going to win this Miles Monroe book, The Purpose of Love and Marriage. So just a side note as we share. But yes, I read both articles. Perspective, how chastity can lead to good sex. That was more recently. And then why I'm still a virgin at 26. And you're an amazing writer, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And one of the things you said in the articles was just that people don't know the difference between abstinence and chastity.
Yes.
That there is a difference. So what is that?
Okay, so that is such a great misconception, one that I've been trying to combat since I started writing about this stuff. A lot of people, the title of my book, Chastity is for Lovers, that came from a bumper sticker that was on my car. And I remember walking through the parking lot at the Tampa Bay Times a long time ago with a photo intern, and he saw the bumper sticker and he was like, what does that even mean? He was like, how can chastity be for lovers if chastity means you can't have sex? And I said, it doesn't. And he was so stunned. But chastity is much greater than abstinence. My favorite definition of the virtue of chastity comes from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. They say, number one, that a virtue is a habitual and firm disposition to do good, which is a decision we make over and over every day to do the right thing. Chastity, also according to the Catechism, is the successful integration of sexuality within the person, which is really the decision we make over and over every day to do the right thing regarding sex. And all of us, single, married, divorced, engaged, anyone, is called to do the right thing regarding sex. But the right thing regarding sex is different for each of us depending on our vocation or our state in life. So if I'm single, as I said earlier, sex is not for me because of what I believe sex is. But if I'm married, we have to do the right thing regarding sex as well. But that means we don't use each other, we don't abuse each other. Sex for a married couple who practices chastity is really the expression of the unity that's achieved by matrimony. They don't have sex just because one of them has an urge. It's much more substantial than that.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, that it's not just for singles, but it's for married people. It's for people who are dating, that chastity is something that can be a virtue that can be developed not just in any stage of your life. And I think some people think, you know, I'm going to be chaste, or actually not even the opposite. Like, they use and abuse sex as, you know, people as objects, and then they think as soon as they get married or put a ring on somebody, all of a sudden they're going to get this virtue of chastity, and it doesn't work that way.
I know. So many people grew up, myself included, in youth groups where we had great conversations about saving sex, but the main and only message was save sex, save sex, save sex. But when your message is save sex, but you never tell somebody what sex is, kids will create their own concept of what sex is based on what they see in the media or what their friends are saying, who mostly got their concept of sex from the media. And so what happens is you have people who may even successfully wait until marriage to have sex, but what is even the point if you're only waiting until marriage to objectify your partner or to use your partner, if that's what you think sex is?
Yeah. And I know for me, you know, I waited as well, and I can say that's so true what you say in your article. Like, it's not just because of practicing that in marriage, it makes it all the more beautiful, because I knew that sex was a sacred thing, you know, and it wasn't like, there was, in your article you wrote about a girl who had waited and then regretted it and said, I wish I didn't wait. And I thought that was interesting, because people think, oh, if I save sex for marriage, it's going to be this amazing experience, and therefore God's going to bless me. Like, but it's like, that's the wrong rhetoric. You're not saving it just for that reason.
Yeah, it's so much deeper than just an amazing wedding night, if you will. You know, like, one of the things that I've always been concerned about is just how many people in our culture are obsessed, you could say, with being prepared for the wedding night. They don't want it to be awkward. They don't want it to be difficult. They don't want to have to communicate about what's going on. They just want it to be totally seamless, totally effortless, and they want to be gratified. But what concerns me is that nobody, very few, are as concerned about preparedness for marriage. Nobody's really thinking about, you know, am I in a state emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, financially, to be partnering with someone and starting a life together. And so when the focus is so heavily on a flawless wedding night, I think we've missed the point. Yeah.
Now for you, since writing this article, and now, I mean, you're single as of now. So what was your dating experience after this? Like, you know.
Oh my gosh. Well,
has it been like, I read your article?
Actually, it's really funny. Everybody, you know, for the most part, Googles each other, you know, when they're getting to know each other or dating, and it's usually pretty early on that men find out what I do, and that I, you know, travel and speak at churches, and I wrote a book about why I'm saving sex, and I put my virginity in the newspaper several times. And, for me, it's been great. It's sort of like a litmus test for men, because I can tell right away whether they are serious, you know, about me and the potential to have a relationship with me, because it scares many people away who either aren't familiar with chastity or just aren't interested in practicing it. And so I've always been a proponent of, like, you know, first date conversation, like, by the way, I'm saving sex. I won't be having sex until I'm married. And you can tell a lot about a person based on their response to that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got a text, but yeah. And I think, you know, for someone watching who maybe you are saving sex for marriage, and we just want to encourage you that you're not alone, that it's not a bad thing. Sex itself is not a bad thing. It's a beautiful thing. But it's just the sacredness of it. Practicing being chaste is something that not just when you're single, but after you get married, that will be a blessing to you. And just talk to a girl or guy or whatever who maybe they weren't practicing chastity, and they were, you know, sex is maybe outside of marriage, and they don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
They want a different way. Like, what would you say to that person?
Oh my gosh, so much. So, you know, that's one of the most beautiful parts about the virtue of chastity, is that it's something you can begin to practice now, even if you've never practiced it before. And I've loved that. There are so many people who think, well, I'm not a virgin, and so, you know, I've missed that boat. I can't practice chastity, and that's so not true. And I want you to know, like, it is totally possible. What I would really say is that, you know, the focus of abstaining from sex outside of marriage is like, it's a no, but it's not a no, it's actually a yes. You are abstaining from sex because you're saying yes to real love, to true love. That's not about using each other just because it's mutually satisfying to use somebody. That will end. You know, that's not what love is. Love is a choice, and part of that is deciding that, yeah, I don't know what the wedding night's going to be like, but it gives a lot of authenticity to your vows when you're willing to enter into a marriage. I think it shows true love when you're able to choose this person based not on what you know you're going to get from them, but on what the two of you can create together as a unit.
Yeah. I think that's such a beautiful thing, and I think let me see if we have any questions. That's the beauty of being live. Like, if you have questions, make sure you type them in here. We got some comments here. Let me see. Okay, I see some comments. Elda Paul says, we all have our past. By then, we still have the grace for repentance to move on. So it's never, ever too late. It's never, ever too late to commit your sexuality and your sex life to God, because it's not like, I feel like people think, oh, he's punishing you or something. But I think it's the wrong view of what sex is. Sex is not supposed to be using somebody, but it's choosing the highest good for them.
It is a total gift of self.
Yeah.
Total gift of self.
Yeah.
And it's so unfortunate that in our culture, that's not what it's about anymore. It really is about you know, mutually advantageous use of each other, and the problem with that is that that's not in alignment with love at all. And love involves sacrifice, and love involves not knowing the future. That's why we have vows. You know, a lot of times couples, you know, in my observation, they'll get married and they'll say, you know, like, yes, I will love you until death, you know, in good times and in bad, as long as while we are dating and engaged, we hit no bad times at all whatsoever.
Which is impossible.
I don't understand. Like, to me, I'm like, let's hit some bad times, see that we can get through them together, and then we know, okay, we can do this, you know.
And you touched on a good topic, because some people, and I know, you know, when I was single and dating, I got the same question from a guy. Well, if we don't have sex, how you know the sex is good? Like, you need to practice before. And in my mind, I was just thinking, well, I have my whole life to practice. Like, once I marry you, you figure it out. That's the whole, like, it's not, I'm going to use you for my good, and then if you can't perform, then it doesn't matter. So
I did some informal essays, informal surveys while I was working on my variety of sex essays that I wrote, and I remember getting this one answer, and I think it's in one of the essays, from somebody who said sex is like dancing, so you have to really practice a lot. And I was like, dancing, which very few people are immediately good at. Yes, like, exactly. It takes practice, and it does. And I've always found it fascinating that the culture that surrounds us thinks that practice has to happen before you make a commitment, when I think it would be so beautiful and, like, probably more fun to practice together once you've committed to being the only people you're going to practice with, you know.
And I'm being married 6 years, I testify to that. It gets better. And
Thank you for your honesty. People need to hear that.
But it's true. It's like, don't worry about that. That's, you know, and there's just something so sacred about it. So, and I want to say this, because I read, it was something you posted on your Instagram, right, about recently all these celebrity breakups, and the recent one was like Channing Tatum.
Yeah, that was a friend of mine, Leah Darrow. She pointed out.
Oh, you posted
that?
Yeah,
I reposted that.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't write that, but
okay.
Leah had pointed out that in Channing Tatum's divorce, like, the announcement that the couple made said, you know, we love each other so much, and that's why we're going to separate. And there's a lot of things that we don't know about that couple, but Leah made some really great points just about how, you know, it's not about warm and fuzzy feelings. You know, that's really kind of how it sounded, that like this couple's warm and fuzzy feelings faded, and so they're just going to let each other go. That's not real love.
Yes, love is about commitment. So we are going to do, I'm going to draw the name from last week and then announce it right here. So the winner of this book from this person commented and shared on our last week's live is Kelly Sanford. Kelly Sanford. So we'll be contacting you about that. And so for those of you watching now, be sure you comment and share for the
sign
chance.
it.
Oh, she'll even sign it. I mean, wow. You can't get better than that. So make sure you share this with all your friends, your family, for the chance to win this. And Arleen, it's been wonderful to have you. And I do want to say this, because yesterday Arleen's grandmother passed, and she told me,
this belonged to my grandmother. It was a gift from my grandfather to her.
Yeah.
And when she found out that she was in her last days, she wanted me to have it, so I'm wearing it as a tribute.
Yes, so we just want to tribute to your grandmother.
Thank you.
I know she's, yeah, that is, it means a lot that even, you know, with everything going on, you still came on to chat. And for those of you watching, I hope you've been blessed by this, learned a little bit more. I learned some more about what chastity actually is. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Anytime.
Yes.